Welcome to Justin and Donald Save America. So you've probably heard a little bit about this AI going around. Chat GPT. It's been grabbing a lot of headlines. Been pretty remarkable. We actually talked about it on the latest episode of the In the Tank podcast. But the CEO of the company that created this, OpenAI, he just came out with a pretty interesting interview with Forbes where he talked about how artificial intelligence might one day break capitalism. That is a direct quote. Break capitalism. So we're going to dive into that in this episode of Justin and Donald Save America. But before we do, I have to put that message out there for anyone that wants to help our channel that you can do so by just doing a couple of things, hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button, sharing this content, or even just leaving a comment underneath the video will all help break through these big tech algorithms that prevent content like this from being shown to more people. So, Justin, how's it going? First of all, you've been playing with this chat GPT with me a lot over the last couple of days. It's pretty remarkable, is it not?
It is pretty amazing. I had I really didn't think this would work, but it actually worked really well. It was terrifying. I asked ChatGPT to write an essay about why the potential dangers of ESG or some of the problems related with ESG, social credit scores, but in the style of Justin Haskins. And I thought, it doesn't know who I am, obviously, right? But it does know who I am, and it did write it did write an essay, a full essay in my own style,
right,
using words that I would use. Now, it wasn't perfect because obviously, how could it be? But it was pretty close.
Yeah.
It was probably as close as I could expect if I just went to someone else, just a human, and I was like, hey, write an essay like me saying this. I'm not sure that just a person, unless they know me really well, would get it any closer than this thing got it. So it was pretty amazing, really, when you think about it. It mined all the stuff because I didn't give it any information. I just, that's all I said. So it mined all of the things that I've written and took my voice and online and wrote an essay about a topic that I gave it no information about at all.
Yeah, I want to be a little balanced
amazing
here because there might be some people that are watching this that are unfamiliar with it. There might be some people that are watching this video that are very familiar with Chat GPT. So I don't want to spend a whole lot of time getting into the weeds and the details of what this is, but I also don't want to gloss over it. So essentially, Chat GPT is an artificial intelligence chat bot program that you can talk with it through a different prompt that's on their website, Chat GPT, OpenAI website. And it will respond to you in whatever ways that you prompt it to respond to you. You could ask it to write an essay, like Justin was just saying. You could ask it to write poetry. You could have it search information for you. I always use the example of, what Jean-Claude Van Damme movies existed in the 90s, and it'll pull a list of all the movies that he was in the 90s and present it to you with some information and all of that. So it's a remarkably powerful thing. We talk about how it can code, it can write code. You ask it to make a program for a back end of a WordPress website that will allow a consumer to do X. You hit enter, it'll give you 50 lines of code that you just copy and paste into the back end of your website, and boom, now that website has that functionality. So it's an incredibly powerful thing here. So I want to bring up this article. This is the whole point of this video. This was a Forbes exclusive interview with Sam Altman, who is the CEO of OpenAI, again, the creators of this Chat GPT. And they ask him a whole bunch of different things. And Justin, I don't know, do you want to get to just immediately to the meat of it, where he talks about breaking capitalism, or a little bit more context to it?
I think maybe a little bit of context. Okay. I wouldn't go crazy, but a little bit.
So, I mean, the things that really stuck out to me when you're reading through this is that he's got very, very high aspirations, very high aspirations for his company, this technology, and just the movement in general. He talks about how he doesn't want a monopoly on this, and he thinks that there should be multiple companies that are all pursuing this artificial intelligence and different levels of it, and all competing with each other and everything. And then he talks about, because this is another thing, and we'll get into this, the idea of incorporating artificial intelligence and chat GPT into search functions. So instead of just going to Google and looking for information, you'll instead be talking to a chat GPT chatbot, some artificial intelligence that will help you find the information that you're looking to find. And he talks about how, like, this has been brought up to him a bunch of times, and, oh, can we make search functionality better? And he's like, no. We're going to revolutionize it. It's not going to be making it better. It's going to be completely different. So, like, he's got these high aspirations for all of the stuff that you see throughout this interview. But then he also talks a lot about the creation of true artificial general intelligence. So this is a thing that, Justin, you might actually know a little bit more about this at this point in time, that there are different variations of artificial intelligence. It's artificial intelligence, but there's also artificial general intelligence, which is, according to my Wikipedia search here, the ability of an intelligent agent to understand or learn any intellectual task a human being can. So he says it very plainly in this interview that ChatGPT is not that. But him and his company are working very actively to pursue true artificial general intelligence. In fact, he has a line that where he says that the question of how we would know that we've achieved artificial general intelligence is something I've been reflecting on a great deal lately. So it seems like it's not some distant future horizon that we're trying to get to. It seems like something that might be in the short term. So that's the context, but just any comments on that before I get to the meat?
Yeah, so just kind of a basic overview of how these things work, since you're going to be hearing these terms used a lot going forward, probably for the rest of your life, unfortunately for some of you. But artificial intelligence just means essentially machine learning. Machines can do something at or exceeding the level of a human being, but in one area. Okay. So like chat GPT is better at doing certain things than any human being can. Okay. Because of its abilities to mine things from the internet instantaneously, the learning that it's done. There's all sorts of algorithms and math, machines that are designed to do really complex math or even simple math just very quickly. They can do that much better than a human being can do that. Right. So that would be an example of a sort of a basic artificial intelligence, search engines, all this kind of stuff. Most of many things that people use on a day-to-day basis, from Google search engines to things that they do with their smartphone, to websites that they use when they go online, various appliances and things they have in their home have a form of artificial intelligence built into it already. Okay. General intelligence has not ever been achieved. Okay. So that's why it's a really big deal that he's talking about this in a way that seems like maybe they could actually pull that off. What general intelligence is, sort of at the highest level, is although machines can do specific things or a range of things as well or better than a human, they can't do everything that a human can do. And they can't do a wide diversity of things typically, and they often can't switch between tasks very well.
Yeah,
So you might
a good example would be Google's DeepMind that like beat the reigning chess champion like 15 years ago. Like, all right, it's the best than any human at chess. But then you can't just take that chess playing computer and ask it to do, like sing a song about, or like write poetry about whatever. Like, it's very specialized.
Yeah, exactly. You could build a machine that is hyper advanced at predicting the outcome of the stock market.
Sure.
But knows absolutely nothing about,
Jean-Claude Van Damme movies.
Yeah, or Jean-Claude Van Damme movies, right. And so people have that ability to switch between lots of different kinds of things, knowledge. So general intelligence is the idea of, if you can achieve general intelligence, then what you have is a machine that is at least as smart basically, as your average human being. Okay. That's sort of roughly, and there's lots of different definitions and debates and all this other stuff. The other thing you're going to hear is super intelligence, ASI. Now, artificial super intelligence is just like AGI, artificial general intelligence, except now it's smarter than humans. Okay. Actually exceeds humans' abilities and in lots of different areas all at the same time. So it's not just better than us at one specific task, it's better than us at basically everything. And in order to achieve super intelligence, you have to have general intelligence, because in order to be smarter than a human, the computer basically has to be able to teach itself at a higher level than a human can teach it, right? Otherwise, it can't be smarter than us. So that's where super. And so a lot of people believe that once you reach general intelligence and you have a machine as smart as a human being, it won't be very long until you get to super intelligence,
Sure.
because it can do everything that a human being can do, except it's a machine. So it can do it in a more efficient way, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, constantly learning, taking in more information. It's just naturally going to be better than us.
Yeah.
So those are the sort of big things here. And that's why general intelligence is a big deal when he's talking about that.
Yeah, so ChatGPT just was like a atom bomb dropping on this whole tech, and we can get into some of that too. It took the world by storm. Everyone was just blown away. I am daily still blown away by the capability of ChatGPT and learning new things that it can do every day. It just continues to blow my mind. So, another thing that I kind of found interesting in this interview is that not only is he pursuing like this artificial general intelligence, but that seems to be like his primary objective. Everything else in his life seems to be secondary. He says achieving, artificial general intelligence, quote, "It's the thrust that drives all of my actions," he says. So it seems like that is their goal. So then what happens if we achieve this stature of artificial intelligence? So they ask him about it, and his response is what's been catching some headlines. You might have seen this. He says, "I think capitalism is awesome. I love capitalism. All of the bad systems the world has, it's the best one, or the least bad one that we found so far. I hope we find a way better one. And I think that if AGI, artificial general intelligence, really, truly, fully happens, I can imagine all these ways that it breaks capitalism." So that's the line. Those are the sentences that kind of grab these headlines, suggesting that artificial intelligence is going to break capitalism, or at least the CEO believes it. He says, "We've tried to design a structure that is, as far as I know, unlike any other corporate structure out there, because we actually believe in what we're doing. If we just thought this was going to be another tech company, I'd say, great, we know that playbook because I've been doing this my whole career. So let's just make a really big company. But if we really truly get AGI and it breaks, we'll need something different in company structure. So I'm excited for our team and for our investors to do super well. But I don't think any one company should own the AI universe out there. How the profits of AGI are shared, how access to it is shared, and how governance is distributed, those are three questions that are going to require new thinking." So that's the context of this whole idea that his AI is going to lead to the breaking of capitalism. So Justin, just kind of seeing those couple of paragraphs, what are your thoughts, man? I mean,
So
our whole channel here is called Stopping Socialism. But maybe it's defending capitalism.
What's really interesting about this is, I don't think there's any doubt that there's going to be a radical transformation of the economy that occurs as a result of technology, like the development of AGI. Even AI, as it gets more advanced, is going to break industries. Whole industries are going to be destroyed or dismantled or completely reformed and transformed by AI. So AGI absolutely will do that if it is developed, and I think it's just a matter of when, not if. So that he's right about that. Everything is going to change economically when that happens. What's interesting about the idea of breaking capitalism, though, as a concept is, and he says, of all the bad systems, this is the best bad system, right? So it's not as though he's saying, well, now we get to have something else, socialism or what, feudalism. We get to go back to something that we've had in the past, right? So I don't know exactly what he means, because as far as I mean, I guess I haven't thought about it super specifically, but I would have a hard time imagining that there is a system other than the systems that have already been tried. It's just a matter of what the mixture is of computer and technological involvement in those systems, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know how you could have another system other than the ones we've already had.
Well,
it's just going to be different versions of it.
This is the point in the video where we kind of just have to start putting on our speculation hats, right? Because I've seen this article or variations of this article going around that the headline makes it suggest that this guy's trying to break capitalism, with artificial intelligence and AGI. But when you read his statements, it makes it very clear, at least, this is the face that he's putting forward, that that's not his goal. He just thinks it's like an inevitable outcome. So I want to just kind of dispel the idea that this guy's trying to take down capitalism using artificial intelligence. I don't think that's the case. Maybe there's some information I'm unaware of, but just reading through this interview, I don't see that being the case. But if we want to start speculating about stuff, I mean, you and I have had conversations about all of the different industries and jobs that could be completely displaced because of this. The disruption across the board is going to be seismic when this stuff is scaled up. Right now, it's just a chat box that you can interact with on a website. But just wait until this technology is being incorporated into smartphones and the internet and element call centers, customer service, all of this different stuff that can radiate from this core piece of technology is going to leave a lot of redundancies in terms of human jobs that don't need to be human jobs anymore. So we could talk about some of that if you want.
Yeah.
Justin.
So I think so. Just kind of that baseline, right? What is capitalism? All right. Capitalism is basically just
voluntary
private property.
exchange of goods, services.
It's freedom with property ownership. That's what it is. So are people freely able to own property and exchange it? That's capitalism. All right. Socialism is is a system where well, it depends on how you want to define it, socialism or communism, but it's when the means of production and property is collectively owned and or managed. And it depends on how that works itself out and to what degree you have it and all of that stuff. But those basically the two kinds of things. Then you have other kinds of systems that have existed where you have a concentration of ownership in the hands of a very small group of people who in many cases have political power as well, and therefore the rest of society doesn't have rights and they don't have property, right? So that's not capitalism and that's not socialism. That's like your feudalism is like that, for example.
Oligarchy.
It could be an oligarchy. You have those kinds of systems, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be an oligarchy because you could have one king at the top who controls everything, but you've got the ownership of all the property belongs just to him. Like you could have a dictator with one guy who owns everything. So it just depends on how it's broken out. But the point is, those are the three rough structures. Either you have freedom with property ownership and the ability to exchange it. You have collective ownership and management of the property, or you have a small group of people, usually, or even one person that has control of all the property, right? Or much of it. And when I look at this, I don't see this. I think that the danger really is in AI. It's going to create so much disruption across the entire world economically, not just for lower income people, but for wealthy people. You and I have talked about this a lot, like lawyers and certain kinds of doctors and certain kinds of really highly paid people, certain scientists. These people are going to be out of jobs overnight.
Writers, editors.
Yeah, writers, editors. Yeah, which is not good for me. But these
computer coders.
Yeah, they're going to all be out of jobs because AI will be able to do their jobs better and faster. So there's no reason to have a doctor read an x-ray. AI can read the x-ray. You don't need a doctor for that anymore. There's no reason for a lawyer to read a contract and tell you what's wrong with it or what you should do to improve it or whatever, when AI can do that for you faster and better and knows all the case law perfectly because it's read all the cases that have ever existed. So there's going to be so much disruption across the entire economy. There's going to be, whenever there's lots of disruption, there is an opportunity for change politically, okay? And in terms of people's rights and all of that, and government, all that stuff, that whenever there's radical change, there's an opportunity for a political change and societal change that goes beyond economics. And sometimes that works out really well. And sometimes, like the American Revolution, and other times it works out really, really badly, like the French Revolution, where they're killing everybody in the streets, okay? Beheading people. So it can go either way. And sometimes the circumstances aren't really all that different. There's not a huge difference between France and America in the early 1800s, late 1700s. This is not a huge difference. And yet one ended with bloodshed and people getting beheaded in the streets and a dictator in the end. And the other ended up with the most successful country that's ever existed. So
bloodshed and way. Then the most successful.
Yeah, of course. But that's part of the thing that's so scary about this, right? Is the bloodshed's usually part of the equation either way. So the reason I bring that up is it seems like at the very least, with that much disruption that is likely to happen, we're talking, some analysts say hundreds of millions of jobs. The World Economic Forum says hundreds of millions of jobs will be displaced and will have to be replaced and whatever, right? Whenever you have that much disruption, there's an opportunity to make an appeal for an entirely new system. So what does that system look like? I can tell you right now, because I've read it, Karl Marx in the 1800s was anticipating that something like this was going to happen. He thought it was going to happen 150 years ago or 100 years ago. Certainly not now. But the socialist will have an answer. The answer will be, well, AI is better than us at producing just about everything anyway. Let's collectively own it. Let's have them produce everything we need, and then we can equally distribute everything we need. And we don't need to have private property ownership because the machines are able to provide for all of us really, really well. That's going to be the socialist argument, for sure. And not speculation. That is guaranteed that is going to happen. Karl Marx was making that argument back when the best machine they had was like, I don't know, what's an mid 1800s? Like we're talking about like ancient times to people today, right?
Yeah.
And
right.
He thought that was right around the corner. So based on what we have now with increases in efficiency and productivity, that is absolutely going to be one of the big appeals. And then you're going to have other people like at the Davos people, right? They don't want Marxism. What they want is to be the people that control all the property. And they're going to be the ones equally distributing it or distributing it in a way that they think is right and equitable and just and blah, 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 blah. Right? Like that's what they're going to say. And they're the ones that already kind of own a lot of this technology right now. And they're the ones investing in a lot of this technology right now. And so you got to ask yourself, well, I mean, how likely is it that that's going to happen? I would say there's a pretty good chance that could be the system that we end up with at the end of all this. Just elites at the top that have control of the big tech, and they're the ones that are making all the money, and they're the ones in control of most of the means of production, and now they make the rules. So the point is the disruption opens the door to really scary possibilities and really incredible, great possibilities. It all depends on what we do right now. That's the thing. It all depends on what we do right now and within the next few years. And I don't really think we're in a place in terms of our society to be having the conversation of let's chart our course for the next 50 years, 100 years. What are human rights going to look like? We can't agree on basic stuff like biology. So the idea that we're going to agree on other things that are really complicated, that's the challenge that we're up against.
Yeah, I've been reading a lot of Yuval Harari for research purposes. Yuval Harari being a historian that's also very closely tied with the World Economic Forum. Klaus Schwab's like right hand man, I think, is a term that's been thrown out there. And he had a quote that kind of went semi-viral not that long ago, where he talked about like what does the world look like for all of these people that can't contribute to society anymore because of all the tech and all of this stuff has rendered them useless. And he referred to them, I think, as useless eaters. What are we going to do with these useless eaters? And his like solution to it was like, we'll just make sure they're happy with video games and drugs or something like that. But these conversations are things that are happening. You mentioned the World Economic Forum that are happening at the World Economic Forum. You see these concepts of like, well, maybe it's time where we finally roll out a universal basic income where people, aren't expected to work anymore, but we still need to make sure that they can eat and all of that. It's like, is that part and parcel of this new system after capitalism is broken? I don't know. Again, this is the segment where we're just talking about speculation here, but it is kind of worrisome to think about for sure.
Yeah,
Uh,
he did that. Just a real quick, the quote was, this perhaps, and he's talking about the kind of stuff we've just been talking about. This perhaps is going to be the big question of the 21st century: what to do with billions of useless humans.
Useless humans. All right.
Useless humans.
Slightly better than useless
Slightly
eaters.
better.
But I think he does refer to them as like needing
He
to
does
eat
talk
or
about.
something.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, but so the other thing that I wanted to talk about in the context of all of this is right now we're just talking about ChatGPT, which is just one program developed by one company, OpenAI. But there is a lot of other players in this game that don't want to be left behind. So some stories that are going around out there that are relate to this is Google. Google fears that this type of technology is going to supplant their position as basically the gatekeepers to the internet, where everyone that wants to find anything on the internet, they go through Google search for the most part. Well, Google is afraid that this is going to supplant them, supplant their dominance of this field. So they have their own artificial intelligence that they're pursuing through a company called DeepMind. They've got a couple of different AI things. One's called Lambda, LAMDA. Another one's called Bard. And they just there was an article just maybe about a month ago talking about how they signaled a code red, an internal code red in Google, that they're worried that this is going to cause all this disruption and their dominance of the whole field. So we need to push forward our artificial intelligence and we need to find our own practical applications of this stuff so that we don't get left in the dust by Microsoft and OpenAI, who Microsoft finances OpenAI. So, Justin, you just told me this morning that Google announced that they were releasing one of their AIs to the public soon, called like Bard AI. There's been a couple of other plans that have been talked about where they're going to push forward. They've got some announcements scheduled in the next couple of days and weeks about all the different artificial intelligence things that they're going to be pursuing. And all of this is in an effort to just stay competitive, or at least have a competitive advantage over Microsoft and OpenAI. And it just makes me wonder if this guy, this Sam Altman of OpenAI, is saying that his technology might one day break capitalism. If he is in a foot race with Google to just stay ahead of each other, are they like considering the like macro effects that this technology could have on the society and the economy, or are we just running headlong into this because they're too concentrated on their race with each other? What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. It's like, I'm not one of these people that believes that, the creation of the atomic bomb or whatever was this horrible thing. I think that you could make a really strong argument that it's prevented a lot more wars than it's caused, obviously. And I think you could make a really strong argument that a lot of lives were saved because of it, millions and millions and millions of lives. But a lot of the scientists involved in that, some of the scientists involved in the creation of that, regretted it after the fact. And it wasn't because they didn't know what they were doing. They knew exactly what they were doing. And it wasn't because they didn't know what the purpose of it was. They knew exactly what the purpose of it was. It was that they were so caught up in the scientific achievement of it all that they didn't stop and think to themselves, I'm not sure how I really feel about this. They just kept pushing forward because progress, no matter what, right? And then after the fact, they regretted it. Now, I'm glad they did what they did, right? But you do have to ask yourself, are these people caught up in the moment and caught up in the achievement and caught up in the progress and caught up in being the next, Albert Einstein, the next like super famous scientist remembered forever for changing the world? Or and then potentially they create a monster that they regret having any part of. That
or a better analogy would be Miles Dyson from Terminator 2, who, when confronted
exactly
with the reality of
Yes.
his creation that came back in time from the
Yes.
year 2025 or whatever.
Correct. But
yeah,
yes, that's exactly right. Are they going to be in a Miles Dyson situation? And the answer is maybe. We don't know. And the funny thing is, people might, honestly, there are so many incredible benefits that could come from this. Like
Sure.
artificial general intelligence could cure cancer.
Right.
We're talking, it could save millions and millions and millions of lives, not just from cancer, a million other things. Okay. There's no doubt about it. Lots of benefits, but at the same time, huge risks,
Sure.
huge risks. And again, I don't have a problem with the risks and the rewards. And my issue is, are we prepared to make the right decision as a society? And globally, are we prepared? Because this is the other thing that you and I also, the thing that keeps us up at night is the sort of impossible question that really you can't answer in a good way at this point in time is, if we all got together and said, you know what, we got to sit this one out. We got to wait a little while. We got to have a conversation before we go forward. Let's pass a law tomorrow. We ban OpenAI from going further. We put a pause on everything. We're going to have a national
figure out what the hell is
conversation.
going on.
Right. We're going to take a break. We're going to take a breather, and we're going to figure out what's going on. And then we're going to press forward after that. Okay. Let's say we can get to that point. And I'm not even saying that's the right thing, but let's say we can do that. All right. China's not going to do that.
Right.
So if we live in a world in 10 years, the only thing worse than living in a world in 10 years where American AI is controlling us is a world in 10 years where Chinese AI is controlling us. Like the Communist Party of China is the one in control of the best technology in the world. That world is way worse than if OpenAI is the one that's leading Google and people like that, as much as I don't trust them. Right. So how do you deal with that? You can't just push the pause button, because there's too many villains out there in the world that would love to have this technology that would be way worse than us, right? If our worst nightmares of like Klaus Schwab in control of AI is nothing compared to the Communist Party of China in control of AI, right? So how do we deal with that? I don't know. You don't know. But we have to have that conversation, and that's the problem. Do you hear people having that? No. What I hear is, if I were to turn on some big cable news network right now, they're not talking about this.
No.
They're talking about budget fights and national debt and
Biden's State of the Union.
You're right. Today is when we're recording this, it's just before Biden's State of the Union address. That's what everyone's talking about. What's Biden going to say in the State of the Union? Who cares? We could all be ruled by AI in 10 years. Joe Biden's dead. He's not around in 10 years. He could be dead now. For all I know, he is a machine.
Yeah,
the idea that we should care about what he's saying compared to these other problems? No, I'm sorry. There is no, your head is stuck in the sand. Or you just don't know yet, which is most people. And I get that, but that's where we are. We're in a dangerous place because of that.
There is no doubt, man. There is no doubt. I've been listening to Glenn Beck. He's been talking a lot about this topic, and he was saying, a segment that I was just listening to the other day. He's like, I've been following this. I consider myself like an amateur futurist. I've been following this futurism stuff, since the early 90s. He's like reading Carl Sagan books and Ray Kurzweil and all of that. And he's been talking about this stuff and how like the technology of the future. And he's like, and it's not even the technology of the future anymore. No. It's the technology of today. Like, this is the stuff that's possible today. And the speed at which this stuff happens is unbelievable. Like, what was like the first smartphone? The first smartphone didn't land in somebody's pocket until what? Like 2009 or something like that?
Something like that. Yep.
And now it's been a little bit over a decade, and literally everybody has them and doesn't know how to function without them at this point. Yep. Save for a few people that are, angrily writing a comment underneath our video right now. But this technology, this artificial intelligence, this chat GPT concept, this software is going to grow like a wildfire. I just saw a colleague of mine has a plugin now that he can have Chat GPT run alongside a YouTube video just like this and transcribe it in a matter of seconds. And then he can feed that transcription back into Chat GPT and have it summarize it in just a couple of paragraphs. Like, this is now a plugin that can work alongside YouTube videos. And this thing just got released to the public, a month and a half ago, 2 months?
Yeah. Well, and a lot of this goes to, and this is not really getting into the weeds, but it can get into the weeds, and we won't, I promise. But Ray Kurzweil, who's a very famous futurist who wrote The Age of Spiritual Machines and a bunch of other really popular books, been talking about futurism for many, many years. Super interesting guy. He takes like 100 pills a day because he's trying to live to be like 150 or something like that. Correct. He's a really interesting, brilliant guy. He has an idea that he believes is it's a theory technically, but he believes it's basically proven that there's this law of, what is it? Accelerating returns. Right. And the idea is that technology and advancements build on previous advancements. And as they build on their previous advancements, the rate of change accelerates. Right. And so the change in society has been accelerating, and it isn't going to stop accelerating because
it's going to accelerate faster.
It's going to accelerate faster and faster because we're learning more. The technology we're using is helping us develop new technology faster and faster, right? And so a lot of people think of technology and then they think, well, you get this spike in new technology and then it kind of weans down, and then we get some other new technology and it kind of goes down. But he's saying that's zoomed in too close to the picture. If you zoom out and you look at the big picture of what's going on, it's not, you don't have those gaps. What's happening is a rapid increase in accelerating returns in technological achievements and advancements, and how that's impacting society is also accelerating. So what we see here is, that's why general intelligence is such a big deal. That's why ChatGPT is such a big deal, because it's the first sort of everyday people, their ability to experience really high level AI that is not quite AGI, but looks like it could become AGI. And now it's out in the world. ChatGPT is out in the world. This is what Glenn Beck was alluding to. It's out in the world. It's learning. Right. It's learning. It is now learning. Every day, ChatGPT is getting smarter than it was yesterday. It's smarter right now than it was when we started this video. And it's going to keep getting smarter. And as it gets smarter, it's going to be building off those achievements. And then other kinds of AI will be used to learn from ChatGPT and become even bigger and smarter than that. And it's going to accelerate faster and faster and faster to the point where eventually it gets to AGI. And then humans cannot control it because it's smarter than we are. That's what once you reach AGI, it's human level intelligence, except it's in a computer. So, and it's hooked up to the internet. And now it's way smarter than we are. It's not a big gap from that to ASI, which we mentioned earlier, super intelligence. And now we have no control of anything. We are out of the game. We're at their mercy. That's the crazy thing. It sounds insane. I get it. It sounds insane. But if we went back to 2008, when Barack Obama was running for president for the first time, which doesn't seem that long ago, and I told you that we would have this kind of technology, you wouldn't even know what a smartphone is yet.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
You wouldn't even know what that is. Okay. So like Netflix was probably still sending movies to you in the mail if you had Netflix. Like that's what that world was. There's no way you would have imagined that you could ask AI. You could go on, anyone could go on their computer right now and ask AI to paint a picture, and it could paint something better than you could ever imagine, or write a song better than anything you could write, or write a love poem to your wife. And it's so good she thinks it's from you, and can rewrite articles by some guy named Justin Haskins in his voice, and it instantaneously for free, and it sounds pretty close. You would never think that that's possible
Of
this
course
close,
not.
and it's going to get crazier and crazier and crazier as time goes by.
I keep saying every time that I'm talking about this with friends or family or colleagues or anything, it's just like, we shouldn't be here yet. This is the stuff that's being talked about in episodes of Black Mirror. Like, this is stuff that's in Westworld. Like, this should not be here yet. Yet we're here, and we're talking about it, and we have to think about the implications. And that's something that you and I are going to do, continue with, because we're working on a whole bunch of different stuff. And I think that this channel here, Justin and Donald Save America, Stopping Socialism TV, is going to be a place to go for constant updates on this type of stuff, because Justin and I are increasingly plugged into all of this, and we're increasingly aware that this is growing to be the most important thing going on. And yeah, we're going to keep tabs on it. But Justin, I don't know, we could probably talk for another several hours about this, but any other last words you want to say before we sign off?
No, well, I will tease that the reason we're locked into this, and the reason we know this stuff the way that we do, is because we are working on a new book with
Right.
Glenn Beck. We're very close to being finished with it.
A sequel.
A sequel to The Great Reset. And we think it'll be called The Great Reset Part 2, but we don't know about the rest of the title yet. That's still up in the air. And we're not even 100% sure about The Great Reset Part 2, we're not sure. But we do know Great Reset will be in the title, and we do know it'll be a book by Glenn Beck and with us. And so we are it's gonna cover a lot of this stuff, and how Davos and that crowd fits into all of this, and how they want to design this technology so that it serves their purposes and not yours. And it is gonna be absolutely terrifying, and it is going to blow your mind.
I don't think there's another book out there that's going to be like this at all.
There's no other book in the universe that's like this book, because even the books that are really, because this is a futurism book, but it's not a futurism book like the ones that you see on the bookshelves today. It is not going to be boring. It is not going to be dry. We are very close to the final draft, and so we are very familiar with it. Obviously, it is incredible. It is going to be so good. It's going to blow your mind. So we are been neck deep in this for a long time, working with Glenn on that book, and we're really excited about what's coming, and also terrified of what's coming. So join us.
It's a very exciting time to be alive. A very, very exciting time to be alive.
Not boring, that's for sure.
To be sure. So what do you think about this story? Everyone that's listening to this, what do you think about this interview? Artificial general intelligence can break capitalism. What do you think? Do you think that it can? Do you think that it's an overstatement? Do you think that this is the actual goal of this guy and these people that are surrounded, the big tech community and all of that? I want to hear your thoughts. Leave them below this video, but that's going to do it for this episode of Justin and Donald Save America. I want to thank everyone for tuning in, and also a reminder, if you want to help out our channel, you can do so just by doing a couple of things: hitting that like button, sharing this content, subscribing if you haven't already, and leaving a comment underneath the video. All of those things help break through that big tech algorithm that prevents content like this from being shown to more people. That's going to do it for today. Justin, where can people go to see your work?
At Justin T. Haskins on Facebook, Twitter, Getter, Parler, and all the other social media channels. And of course, stoppingsocialism.com.
Yeah, stoppingsocialism.com. You could also find our other Stopping Socialism content shared across the different social medias, whether it's Facebook, Stopping Socialism, or Twitter or Instagram or anything like that. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you next time.